What if instead of making all these moves and then hearing it later on, having to go back and change it and keep reworking things, what if you just started at the finish and worked backwards? Wouldn't that save you a lot of time and frustration? Well, that's what top-down mixing is. Yo, what's good, guys? Inswain with Inswain Audio. Welcome back. If you're new, make sure to subscribe and stick around. I drop videos like this every single day. You're not going to want to miss them, I'm telling you. So, top-down mixing. I kind of already gave it away, but what it is you work from the top down as opposed to the traditional mixing of bottom up. Now I'll explain. When we say top down, we mean starting from the end of the signal towards the beginning, meaning starting at the mix bus and working backwards. Because I'm sure, as you know, traditionally we would start right at the individual track level, mix it, and then move on. But the things we do at the end of the chain affect the things before it. So you can get your vocal or whatever, your earlier track sounding perfect, but then when you go to the mix bus, everything's going to change and you have to go back. So what if you just worked from the top down? This way you'd be sure that everything you're doing isn't messing up the things that will come after it. Okay, so first we need to make sure that we understand the order of processing within a DAW. This goes for all DAWs, so it doesn't matter if you're not using Logic like you see behind me. Whatever DAW you use, the same thing applies. So the order of operations here is we have processing at the individual track level. This is, say your vocals. If you put an EQ on your vocals, it's only going to be EQing your vocals and not the guitar. After the individual track comes groups or buses. Let's say you have a lead vocal, 2 background vocals, and ad-libs. If you put those in a vocal group or a vocal bus, any processing that you do on that is going to affect all of the vocals. So if you EQ it, it's not just going to EQ the lead vocal, it's going to be EQing the lead vocal, the 2 background vocals, and the ad-libs, for example. Same thing goes for a drum bus, right? Any kind of bus you create. And then finally, we have our mix bus. This is the entirety of the mix. So if we put an EQ on the mix bus, it's not going to just EQ the lead vocal, or not even just EQ all 4 of those vocals, right? The lead, the 2 backups, and the ad-libs. It's going to EQ all of the vocals, all the drums, all the guitars. Every track and bus in the mix is going to get processed. So an easy way to break this down is to remember the order. It goes individual track, then groups or buses, then the mix bus. Anywhere you do processing is not only going to process that level, but also anything before it. So a mix bus is going to also get the buses / groups and the tracks. If you process on the bus / group, it's also going to process the tracks, and then processing on the tracks only affects the tracks. So now that we understand how things are working, what top-down mixing says is to start at the final step, your mix bus, and then work your way down to the groups and process all your different buses, and then work your way down to the individual tracks. And like I already said, the reasoning for this is because when you process something, it's also affecting things before it in the order of the operations. So instead of starting at the beginning at the track level and then moving to your buses and processing them, and then having to go back to your tracks to fix how it's interacting, and then you work on your mix bus, and then have to go back to the buses and maybe even the tracks, right? You have to keep going back steps. What you would do is you start at the end, get that to sound right, and then work your way down. That's the main reason for doing this. Another reason is because obviously at the end of the chain, at the mix bus, the moves are more broad and they're affecting the whole song. So you get close to the end faster. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to mix any faster, although you might like this and do that. That's not the point. The point is that you're making these big moves in the beginning to get you big strides to get you really close to the end right off the bat. And then you just spend the rest of your time fine tuning as opposed to doing the minute details at the beginning and then making broad moves at the end. So that's top-down mixing, how it works, and the reasoning behind it. Now you might be wondering, do I do top-down mixing? Is this good? Do I recommend it? First off, I recommend anything that works for you. This isn't necessarily better or worse, it's just a workflow thing. You could get to the same end result whether you start at the end and go backwards or you start at the beginning and go to the end, right? You could end up making the same moves as somebody else. So it's not like it's necessarily better, but maybe you like it and you end up making better results because you're more creative with it and it makes more sense to you. And it also might be a time saver, right? Because you're not going to have to keep going back and correcting yourself. So that's first and foremost. So if you've never done it, maybe give it a shot. If you like it, it's for you. If not, that's okay. This isn't like something you have to do. Do I personally do it? Sort of. It really depends on the song. And when I do it, so to speak, I'm not doing it exactly like that. I kind of made my own version. Usually I'm just starting from the track and working my way up. So doing bottom up mixing, not top down. But when I do implement this a little bit is I'll do some mix bus processing and then go back and start from the track level. So instead of like going beginning to end or end to the beginning, I'll start at the end, do just the mix bus, but then go back to the beginning, work on the tracks, and then go to my groups and buses. And the reason I do this is sometimes I like to mix into a mix chain on the mix bus, like a little compression and saturation and maybe a limiter just to get the level, but I don't want to do too much heavy-handed processing personally. But once again, it's all about your preference. I just like to make you aware of the strategy, explain it, break it down so that you can understand it and you can implement it if you want. If not, you don't have to. A lot of people do this and a lot of people don't. And guess what? They're all getting great mixes. So just do what works for you. Anyways, guys, hope you found this one interesting. Let me know down in the comments. I love to hear from you guys. And make sure to like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. We're getting there, guys. We're getting there. We're going for 1,000 subscribers. We're almost there. Thank you if you already do subscribe. I truly appreciate it. Anyways, guys, Inswain with Inswain Audio. I'll see y'all tomorrow, man. Peace.